When I actually kind of leaned into what I'm going to talk about today, and I leaned into how to listen to your heart voice, I did what you naturally do, and I went to my heart. And so I put my hands in my heart, and I was like, what do you want me to talk about today? And really what came up was love. Love. About how to love. And to me, it was such an interesting, calming moment as I tapped into the power of the heart, because we have a tendency to talk about listening to your heart and following your heart and speaking to your heart, but we forget actually to be in our hearts. So I was traveling down from York today, and I was just on the train, and I was just like being in my heart. And I was imagining my heart energy just flowing through the train and just being present in that. And I was like, this is the most phenomenal feeling. I'm so glad I decided to give this talk today. So I wanted to take a little bit of a moment first to ask everyone to take a split second to point to themselves. Yes. And as probably you've all noticed that nobody actually ever points to their heads. Right? You never point to your head as who you are. You will always point within yourself. And the heart has this amazing reputation of being vulnerable and being damaged and broken. And we have a tendency to feel like we really need to take care of our hearts, when really our hearts are our true self-centers. This is where we truly reside. And so listening to your heart voice is actually something that bubbles up within you, and it's always there shouting at you, trying to lead you on your right path, no matter what kind of flies you have. So over this talk today, which we'll try to keep to the 45 minutes, but I don't know if I'll be able to ramble on, I will want to be actually giving you some tools to actually heal the heart, as well as really tap into this. I see the heart as a labyrinth. We start at the very beginning of this entranceway, and there's a sense of a vulnerability. There's a sense of a deep hesitation. Because we do. We tell ourselves, heart's so vulnerable. It's been so hurt. What am I going to do? How do I actually bear myself the pain of actually diving into my heart? When really, your heart is waiting for that entrance. But we have to tiptoe gently, because your brain gets in the way. The brain tells lovely stories, and it's time to release them. So, to take a first moment, I want you to just take a deep breath, put your hands on your heart, and simply whisper to your heart that you are here, and you are listening, and you are ready. And rather than your hands being on your heart, I want you to imagine your heart rising up to your hands. Shift your perspective to your heart coming up to greet you. She's eager. As you breathe in deeply into this space, be prepared for what comes up. And if you sense any hesitation, or if you sense any, past pains or past torments, just give space and know that your heart's comfortable. Now, freedom of hands. It's interesting when we tap into intuition. We actually have a tendency to, we use pendulums, we use cards, I use all of them myself, and yet you do have this deep inner resource within you. So I want to lean into a little bit of how to actually listen to that. And again, on that beginning of that labyrinth, to become friends with your heart and release that mind chatter. What makes up the mind chatter? Well, there's a lot of things that head into that brainwave activity that actually comes from outside sources. There's all the shoulds in our lives. There's all the expectations of our lives. There's all the stories we tell ourselves. There's all the circumstances that happen out there that you find you relay back in maybe not most honest ways, but what makes you feel safe. You know, one thing as a coach I often work on with my clients is the fact that our brains aren't the enemy, but they are also there telling you how to be safe. They will tell you whatever stories they need to keep you safe. And quite honestly, nothing scares a brain quite as much as listening to your heart, because it will lead you in all kinds of various directions, and your brain panics. So those lovely shoulds, those lovely stories, the things your mother has told you, and the nod agrees. You know, things society tells you, how to be a good citizen. Those are things that can really block you along the way of diving into that labyrinth. So the first step, and I'm not going to go too much into it because I do only have 35 minutes, but the first step is to actually take a good look at what shoulds are weighing at your life. What are those things you've been told that maybe don't belong to you? Over on my website, I can get you the link to come visit me at the table. I have a little process that you can download all about how to actually release those, so that's there for you if you want. But it is a question of really examining from your head the shoulds, because that's where these things begin. I want to kind of actually lean a little bit, speaking of the head, which is really your physical reality here. I want to actually just give a couple of little things about your heart from a physical experience. Who knew that your heart energy field, the field that flows from your heart, is actually five times longer and wider than your head? In fact, your heart energy radius can go up to 5,000 feet. 5,000 feet. Your heart energy, if you let it fly, will actually expand. Oh my. This is a strong, energetic source of who you are. And so it's no wonder that your brain sits there chattering, saying, yeah, but remember what mom said, because it's going to want to hold that back. It's important to give yourself that power back and actually listen deep, knowing that strength. Your heart's not vulnerable. It is strong. And while we tell stories about it, saying that it is, broken, wounded, that it needs to heal, she's still guiding you all the same. It's not saying it's not true. She's still taking you. She can take it. And so it's really important to trust that process is still flowing. And that if you let that energy wide, with the right intention, it is powerful. But still, we have that lovely heart chakra, don't we? And that heart chakra still does love to hold on to little things and need clearing. And so it's really important to give yourself permission to deal with them, to have compassion with your heart and literally lean into her and say, hey, I see that we have some things to clean up, and that's okay. I love you. You love me. Let's work this together. What can we do? A beautiful practice that I always love to pass on is something that's called hope. Who's heard of hope?
Could you say that again?
Ho'oponopono.
Oh.
No? No. Paul is like, oh, where did you learn that, Paul? So the Ho'oponopono is a beautiful, beautiful practice that is passed down by Hawaiian tradition. If you want the traditional pronunciation, it's actually Ho'oponopono. So there you go. Work with me often, and I will say Ho'oponopono because I never say that one naturally. So the Ho'oponopono is a practice of forgiveness. But it's not just about forgiveness for others. It's a forgiveness of yourself. And the way I like to practice it, because I'm not very traditional, is also a practice of releasing. if you imagine your heart energy beaming out wide, and then things coming into that energy, because everybody else's energy is beaming out wide at the same time, and you're in an exchange with someone, and they hurt you, or potentially you hurt them. Those energies collide, and you get little hooks into each other's fields. And therefore then, whenever you think, I should have said that in that argument, or why did they do that, or oh, I can't believe that they said those things, it's a reminder that that hook is in place, and you are linked to that person. So therefore that energy feels a little drained out, and that heart energy isn't being focused on the deep intention of what it can be. So the Ho'oponopono is a simple practice to unhook those hooks and give those people's energy back, or that situation's back, or your past self energy back, and claim it back for yourself. And again, claiming your whole self back from that practice. So the Ho'oponopono is 4 simple sentences. And those sentences start with, I'm sorry. Which is always really hard when it's someone else who's hurt you. But the thing that you're saying sorry for is, I'm sorry we danced together. I'm sorry that on some cosmic level we made a contract to interact like this, and I really miss you. Which is actually the second sentence. Okay. Traditionally, it's actually, please forgive me, or also, I forgive you, but I actually do use, I release you. Because when you say release, you feel this amazing pop as the hook unleashes and you give that person their energy back. And then you also say, I release you, and you unhook them, and you claim yourself back. And you keep saying it until you feel the pain. Because it will take some time. But that's only the first 2 sentences. And the other sentences are, I thank you, which, if you haven't fully done the release, might sting. So you go back and you do the release until it doesn't. And the I thank you is literally saying, I thank you because of this experience, I'm who I am. Here I am. This is me. And so thank you for what you've done in order to bring me to this place. And the last one is, I love you. And I will say, sometimes I do suggest you just say, I surround you in love. And you imagine a bucket of love from that beautiful heart radiance just flowing over the other person. And you allow them to be surrounded in a bubble of love, and you allow yourself to be in a bubble of love, coexisting, but not. And then again, when they pop into your head the next day, because your brain's like, yeah, but remember, because your brain will, you do it again. And again. And again. Because your brain does want safety. It is used to the old stories, and it is used to the old patterns, and it wants to keep you safe from getting hurt again. So it guides you away from your heart, telling you that your heart can't take it, but your heart can. Your heart can take it. She's strong. Now, there's one thing that I want you to believe in as you walk away from this talk, it's how strong your heart really is. I was kind of like preparing for this talk, and I was like, I need a few antidotes of like heart strength. And it's interesting because I know for a fact that when I listen to my heart, everything just unfolds differently. So, I mean, for instance, I've been married for 22 years, and I was living in Canada, and I was doing a lot of meditating and a lot of heart centering, and that was when all of a sudden it was like, get to England. And 3 weeks later, I found myself on a plane to England, and I was guided, and I spent a while listening to my heart connection, which led me to connecting to Archangel Michael and led me to a lot of different things. But because of trusting that voice, I walked into a meditation class, locked eyes with the man of my life, and we were engaged 3 weeks later. It moves mountains. Again, why our brains do not want us to listen to this. Because our brains are there trying to keep things as the status quo. It's just like any other part of your body. Your brain loves homeostasis. It loves to keep that balance. So it's really important to tap. All right, so I'm giving you a few basic guidelines. I want to make sure that I'm keeping in tap with this for you. But I'm giving you a few basic guidelines of how to actually heal you, how to have compassion for your heart, and how to trust your heart. How do you listen to your heart? Which is the name of the talk. It's a question of leaning into that beautiful space. Okay. Understanding your heart's role spiritually is vitally important. Understanding that your heart is actually, yes, this massive energy field that is guiding you and leading you, but there's also the fact that your heart is there as actually a communication center. Your heart is actually how your spiritual essence is speaking to you. I like to call it the emotional guidance system. Well, actually, I stole that. It's often known as the emotional guidance system. So what do we think of with the heart? We think of it as how you feel. How do you feel things in your heart? This is your emotional center. What do emotions tell you? Well, they actually tell you a lot. If you think that you as your spiritual self is pure positive energy, that's who you are. You are made of love. You are made of light. You are made of stardust. You are this magical essence of being. And that's pure positive energy. So, your heart gives you this lovely little secret where she gives you these indicators of how connected you are to your best version of yourself. If you are feeling joy, you are in a perfect, direct, aligned signal to everything you are. If you are excited, that is an indicator that you are totally in flow. You start to feel stressed, that's your spirit's way of saying, yeah, no, I'm not going in there with you. I can't do that. Your heart is giving you little nudges, much like any cell phone or any radio device that we used to. We don't do that quite so much, thanks 5G. But it is a sense of holding that. Remember those days of where's the signal? Where's the signal? That is your heart's role. She is guiding you and nudging you in the best way she can. And that is by how you feel. It doesn't always have to be the profound sense of, wait, I'm listening. It doesn't need to be that intuitive force all the time. Rather, she's always nudging you. It's like you walk into the grocery store and you're like, ooh, no, that feels really stressful in there. That's your heart. Your heart is actually whispering, can we come back later? If you are in traffic and you start getting really intense emotion, your heart is actually saying, why don't you try something different? Focus on something else. Shift your attention. Put on the radio. You're always being given these beautiful indicators that tell you where you're supposed to go for the best connectivity to your spiritual, intuitive self. I want to encourage you to actually just take a test drive on it. Next time you are just feeling a little irritated, don't wait until the big emotions. Just wait until you're a little irritated. And ask yourself, what is my heart trying to tell me right now? You'll find that you're actually being nudged to something different. It's such an interesting thing to start a talk with, how do you listen to your heart voice? When really, the truth is that your heart is talking to you. It's just that we've gotten so used to the idea of either blocking our sense of emotion or being upset when we're not happy, or especially looking for outside things to govern how we feel. When really, the idea is to listen to the information we're receiving. Another little fact about the heart is actually that the heart and the head are always communicating, but the majority of communication between those two sources is from the heart to the head. It's a vast difference in percentage that your head is actually not conferring to your heart that often. Which is what that is in that base of emotion. Your heart is sending those things of, not feeling so great. Oh, that feels a little stressful. I'm a little irritated here. Can we change this? And your head has a tendency to keep that balance and keep plowing at the same time. When you listen to your heart, you're going to find that all of a sudden, and just by listening to your emotions, you're going to find that suddenly you find this flow. You get led to feeling better. You kind of ask yourself how to find the better feeling option. You listen to that and find life unfolding. I'm sure you've had it where you've been in a situation and you're like, that doesn't feel quite right. And so you listen to that nudge, and by listening to that nudge, you follow your intuition, and things magically happen. That is your heart. And you always feel so much better when you simply trust that feeling. So, I want to do a little experiment. If you put your hands on your heart again, because we're going to be doing that a lot, and you imagine the field that is flowing from your heart, hold within you a positive emotion. You can use something to spark that positive emotion, or just imagine it flowing from your heart, rather than needing prompts from your head. Imagine it like a beautiful light that radiates out. Give yourself permission to have that 5,000-foot radius of positive emotion without any circumstance, without anything needing to change. Just let her beam of her best vibrational self. Take a moment to allow that to flow. Calling yourself back. Take a moment to appreciate how we're all connected in that space. Knowing that that radius is flowing between all of us. It's such a nice thing to do. Like on the train from Derbyshire, you can actually just stop and be in that state. You don't need anything. In order to listen to your heart, you have to tell her you're listening. You have to give her the cues to say, I see you, and I hear you. And that can actually be as simple as actually just with the question at various times of the day of just saying, what do I feel right now? What do I feel right now? What am I being told? What am I feeling? What is this emotion holding up for me? And then, if you don't like what you hear, and you don't think it's of your best connection, then simply ask, what can I do differently? What can I focus on that will feel better? I love the version of the heart which asks us to know that the heart is actually our home. This is who we are. It's our center. If you imagine spiritual energy, I mean, I know many of you work with energy or have had energy sessions, and we see energy as this mass field, which of course it is, but there's a spark of that energetic field that's us. And that resides in this physical vessel, as my 13-year-old son likes to call it. This vessel, this is our home. This is where we truly reside. Untarnished, simply, pure, blessed, we need to listen. So, in that space, it's a beautiful, beautiful practice to tap into listening to your heart's voice. Your heart's voice is truly that voice of your highest self. This is all you are. So, there's a beautiful practice. It's by Megan Watterson, who wrote the beautiful book, Mary Magdalene Revealed. She also has a beautiful book. You're like, I know this practice. She also has a beautiful oracle card deck. I have it at my table, actually, that you can look through, which really offers you questions on how to tap in what you're asking your heart, and heart-voice meditations. But her practice is actually something that you can do anywhere at any time. It's just 3 simple breaths. You imagine those breaths flowing into your heart very intentionally. So they have 3 intentions. I'm going to say there's 3 breaths, but it doesn't mean you might not have a few breaths in between. So you really fine-tune that intention. So the first breath, and I again encourage you, put your hands on your heart, you know we're going to be doing that. Put your hands on your heart, take a really deep breath. You imagine that breath flow into your heart. You're literally just acknowledging your heart with that breath. You're acknowledging your place as your spiritual home. And then, within that, once you find that spiritual home, you simply ask a question. The next breath is simply the question. It can be something that you really need to know the answer of, or perhaps it's just, what are you trying to tell me? Breathe into that. Allow the information to bubble up. Then, when you're ready, third breath, give her thanks. Thank her for her guidance and for your home, this inner temple that you're always allowed to tap into. What I love about this simple practice is that you truly can just do it anywhere. It's always there. So between listening to your emotional guidance system, knowing when you're maybe not in full connection to yourself, knowing when you're kind of off the mark and you need to tap in again, and then when you find that sweet spot, using a deep breath practice to just lean in to that wisdom, you'll find that suddenly things flow very differently. suddenly it means that you are being led by your heart voice. It's not just a random hobby that you occasionally, yeah, this week I'm going to tap into my heart voice. This is your guiding force. I'd love to know. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any comments? Is there anything that comes up for you?
I was just wondering, you know, when you said that it's your heart talking to you, would you say that the heart is also connected to your stomach? Because that's where our intuition comes from, isn't it?
Ooh, I love that question. That's a great question. There's always that thing. I love that question because it's actually something that I've actually changed my mind about. So for the longest time, I used to, kind of interchange between the gut and the heart. And it was like, are you listening to your heart or are you listening to your gut? And then I was actually talking to someone, and your gut is your solar plexus, isn't it? It's your sense of self. But there's also the deep sense of a need for security from your gut. It does tie into a level of security. It is part of it is very close to your root chakra. There is a need for safety. So, your gut can be a little louder because your gut is the one that's like, oh, don't do that, that's danger. The heart tends not to deal so much with don'ts. It has a tendency to deal more with do's. So, whereas your gut will be like, that seems a little risky. Maybe don't get on that plane right now. There's the shift to instead, your heart whispers. So, I like to kind of interact between the two. So if you get a gutful, and all of a sudden you really can't digest, that's always the thing that happens in my family, all of a sudden you can't digest. Instead, you actually ask yourself, is this from fear or is this from love? And then you return to your heart. And it is important to remember that the heart voice is this gentle, flowing voice. And she does whisper. Because, quite honestly, she has a tendency to always be blocked out. Right? She's been blocked out for too long. So if you think of all the layers of your life, all the layers of your experience, all the layers of your fear, all those shoulds, they stacked on top of your heart voice. And they don't resonate the same. So these can't share. So you want to make sure those are cleared out. If you have a gut instinct, listen to it by all means. Ask it if it's from fear, ask it from love. Then check your emotional guidance system. How are you? Are you connected? Are you not? And then go back to the heart. Okay, what do you think of this? Yes? No? Maybe? And so play. Great question. I was so excited for this. Like, when I was talking to somebody, she's like, well, that's your solar plexus, and it's linked with fear. And I was like, oh, that's so true. We are, it is really important to know that right now, we are in a triggered state for our nervous systems. It's really important to do the work on your nervous system at this moment. Most healers, even most psychologists, are saying that we are in a certain level of PTSD response, and that's okay. It's just important to lean into that and to know that and ask yourself, is this a triggered response or is this my heart response? Where am I coming from? So I find that's where the work is right now, is making sure that nervous systems are really regulated and grounded and releasing. I want to thank everybody for giving me this opportunity to do this talk. I hope you all enjoyed it. I do have a table, where I actually am offering a draw on a free session with me. So it's a 90-minute session with me where we will work on a challenge. There's energy healing. There's a lot of resources that you can use. I also do notes after every one of my sessions, so you can win one of those. But I'm also doing that. Anyone who actually enters the draw, I do a 15-minute either reading, but I can also do an emotion code release, which will release a trapped emotion for you on that call. So that is all at my table. And thank you so much for your time. Love and light.